Hello guys! Morning! So, we just recorded this video. I wanted to go live, kaya nga lang medyo mahirap yung ating signal dito. So, I decided to just make this video recorded and I will upload this later. So, if you are watching this, hindi na po tayo live. But of course, no, feel free to comment and say hi and I will get back to you as soon as I can. So, as per the title, we will discuss the basic of low-carb nutrition and fasting. This is especially dedicated para sa mga baguhan pa lang, the beginners, na especially na dumami yung ating reach ngayong mga days na ito. We've been actually increasing our following by more than 1,000 a day. So, I couldn't be grateful enough. In behalf of the whole team, we would like to thank you for keeping the advocacy very robust, no? Maraming salamat po sa pag-like, pag-share ng lahat ng contents natin. But most importantly, sorry, this is to show you that our way of life is hindi talaga pang special population lang. This is for everyone. This is for the elderly, this is for the children. This is even for the pregnant women and even breastfeeding. Kailangan tama lang talaga yung mindset natin. So, uunahin muna natin yung low-carb nutrition. Ano yung low-carb nutrition? So, yung low-carb nutrition po, basically, eto lang yung pagkain na pagwala ng mga carbohydrates, especially yung mga nagpapataas ng ating blood sugar, okay? At dalawa pong klase ng carbohydrates. Marami sila, but for the purposes of this video and for the purposes of learning low carb, merong carbohydrates na directly nakakapagpataas ng ating blood sugar, but meron din namang isang klaseng carbohydrates wherein it doesn't really spike blood sugar, pero nakaka-lead ito into insulin resistance, and that is because of the fructose na nasa ating liver when it is being processed continuously and in too much quantity. Then, nakakaroon po yan ng fatty liver, and that can cause a lot of inflammation, and that is now known to be the cause of many problems na marami tayo ngayon. So, ano-ano yung carbohydrates? So, basically, yung carbohydrates, ito yung mga isang klaseng pagkain natin na kung saan akala natin noon super essential. Akala natin hindi tayo mabubuhay kapag wala ito. Pero, what we know even before marketing, even before business establishment, yung carbohydrates is truly non-essential. Ibig sabihin, we can live kahit hindi tayo kumain ng carbohydrates. Of course, we are not saying that we really wouldn't eat carbohydrates. Hindi po yung point na yon. Yung point lang na yon is ang katawan natin are designed to adapt. Kung merong mga panahon na walang carbohydrates, we can survive. Sa mga panahon na marami namang carbohydrates, say for example, during fruit bearing season, harvest season ng mga fruits, okay, of the fruit bearing trees rather, okay, yun po ay we can accommodate, but supposedly hindi yan tama na araw-arawin natin yung carbohydrates, because our basis sa knowledge na ito, it's not about the dietary guidelines or the food pyramid na nakasanayan natin. This is actually based on evolution, okay? So by evolution, ang ibig sabihin nan how we were able to evolve as humans for the last 2 million years or more, okay? And yung carbohydrates, i-break down natin. For practical purposes, yung carbohydrates na pinakamarami po na nating kinakain, especially sa Pilipinas and among many Asian countries, is the rice, okay? Yung kanin, okay? So, kanin, isama natin dyan yung patatas, yung mais, yung tinapay, mga noodles, pasta, and to some extent, the rest of the vegetables, the rest of the plant produce is mainly composed of carbohydrates. Of course, merong kakaunting proteins, merong kakaunting fats, but generally, plant-based foods are loaded with carbohydrates, except for really certain produce, like yung mga soy are mostly proteins. The nuts and seeds are mostly composed of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Embedded na sila. But generally, vegetables, the root crops, and yung mga grains, especially the grains, no? They are really loaded with mostly carbohydrates. So, anong epekto na sa katawan natin kapag parati tayong kumakain ito? We thought that only the sweet foods, yung mga matatamis lang, yung nakakapagpataas ng ating blood sugar. But now, we realize, okay, na hindi lang pala ito yung mga matatamis lang. the complex carbohydrates in the form of starch. Okay? Yung starch po is yung complex form or compact form ng carbohydrates. Ito yung nasa patatas, nasa kamote, nasa saging saba, kahit anong saging pa yan, kahit anong kanin pa yan, anong kulay ng bigas pa yan, it's all still loaded with carbohydrates, either from starch, yung complex carbohydrates. Meron din itong simple carbohydrates in the form of glucose and fructose. At meron din itong cellulose and fiber. The cellulose and fiber, mostly hindi yan easily digested ng ating katawan. So, they are not really converted into energy or they are not really absorbed sa katawan natin directly, causing blood sugar changes. So, for the purposes of identifying the carbohydrates that we would like to avoid, yun yung carbohydrates that are high in the glucose and also starch that are easily converted into glucose. Anong ibig sabihin yan? Yung kanin po, kapag kinain natin, kapag ninuyanan natin, it is easily broken down. So, para siyang chain or kadena. So, each piece of that is actually the glucose. And kapag mahaba na sila, it's called starch. And then, kapag kumain tayo, we actually break it down. So, the moment na nakapasok na sila sa ating katawan, our body can no longer identify if it is the glucose coming from asukal, o ito yung glucose na nanggaling sa asukal, o ito yung glucose na galing sa kanin, o di kaya sa patatas, o di kaya sa kamote. But of course, there is this concept ng low glycemic index. So ano yung concept ng low glycemic index? So yung low glycemic index, kino-compare nila yung pagtaas ng blood sugar sa ating nagpataas na ang sugar sa ating blood, okay? As compared to the pure glucose or parang yung pure sugar na iniinom natin o kinakain. So, of course, no, hindi ganon kadirektang nakakapagtaas ng blood sugar yung nasa kanin, yung nasa patatas, yung nasa oatmeal, ano pa yung mga paborito, wheat bread, whole fiber, whole grain bread, all of those that are being considered as superfood, but sa totoo lang, hindi talaga sila superfood. They are just another set of carbohydrates na meron lang extra fiber. So, somewhat, in a sense, it is healthier. Okay? Healthier kasi hindi siya diretsong nakakapagtaas ng blood sugar. And it can be accommodated by those people who are perfectly healthy, exercise, walang family history of insulin resistance, walang diabetes and all that. Pero for the majority of us actually who have been eating the wrong kind of foods, no, at walang masyadong proper mindset, dumating na tayo sa point na hindi na talaga tayo ganon ka-tolerant when it comes to effect of carbohydrates. At eto ay manifesting not just as diabetes, hindi lang po ito hypertension, hindi lang po ito cancer, but it could be as mild as parating nananakit yung katawan, parating sumasakit yung ulo, naghihilo, nasusuka, nagkakaroon ng GERD, merong gastritis, merong mga sugat na hindi madaling gumaling, and then merong mga pamamaga, nagkakaroon na ng arthritis, meron ng panglalabo sa mata, minsan nga kahit yung hindi na masyadong makalasa ng tamis. So, their tolerance to sweet taste is sobra-sobra as compared to like before. Before, kumain ka ng isang chocolate, maliit lang, okay ka na. Ngayon, kailangan 3, 4 na. Isang donuts noon, hindi mo mauubos. Pero ngayon, kulang yung isa. So, those are already mild signs and symptoms na your body is already having too much sugar. That's why, for the time being, no, na hindi pa kayo nagsisimula ng low carb, it is best to avoid everything na pwedeng makapag-stop ng inyong progress. So that is, kapag patuloy kayong kumakain, say for example, gusto nyo magsimula ng low carb pero hindi nyo pa ma-let go yung kanin, hindi nyo pa ma-let go yung saging, hindi nyo pa ma-let go yung mga prutas at lahat ng yan, then pwede naman. But know that your healing, yung paggaling nyo po, ay hindi ganon kabilis. The recovery na kailangan natin, sana, the break that we need from all of this harvest season signal. Kasi kapag parati tayong kumakain ng carbohydrates, ng grains, ng sugar, it is sending a signal to our body that we are really on a harvest season. At yun yung ayaw natin. Because harvest season by nature, dapat isang beses lang yan sa isang taon. But now, we are eating rice 3 times a day. all year round. The moment na na-win na yung bata sa breastfeeding, kapag hindi na nagdedede yung bata, anong yung pinapakain? Lugaw. Dito, we call that suam. So, it's like, ground rice ba yon? And then, parang ginagawang soup, right, like that. Pero, generally, it's mostly just carbohydrates. And that is now what we consider as the reason kung bakit hindi talaga ganon kataasan yung mga Pinoy. We are not really that tall. And I think somewhat, of course, we can say it's genetics, and of course it has something to do with environment, sleeping, and many other factors. But by nutrition, it's the proteins that we need, okay? Brain development, it's from the good fats, okay? It's from the good fats we can develop more of that. So that's why, just like what other advocates say, if you want your child to have this boost in mental development, give them bone marrow, give them whole milk kung meron man, whole cheese, full fat cheese rather, and many other good fats like beef belly, even real pork belly, butter, kahit anong mga taba na healthy and natural, including avocado and coconut oil. And of course, for the building blocks naman, sa paglaki talaga nila ng kanilang muscles and their height and other development, you are better off providing proteins in your kid. Okay, so enough of that. Going back to low carb nutrition, how will you start this? So first, you have to recognize kung ano yung mga common carbohydrates na kinakain mo. If I have to break it down sa mga simple na alam natin na common sa atin sa Philippines, no? So number 1, yung rice. Number 2, yung pandesal, tinapay, bread, oatmeal. Number 3 would be yung mga pang-snacks natin. So usually sa mga sandwiches, yung mga kakanin. So avoid muna yan. What else? Yung panghimagas natin, sometimes we thought because it's fruit, it's already healthy. Pero now we know, now we see na hindi po ganon ka-healthy yung fruit, especially if you are eating this on top of everything else, okay? So, the fruits is mostly sweetened. Matamis nga siya, diba? It's nature's dessert. But it's full of fructose and glucose. So, kapag pinagsama mo yan, it's just equivalent to table sugar, okay? Pareho lang sila ng white sugar. And we don't need so much of that, especially if we want to heal, okay? So, kailangan we recognize all of those and we try to avoid those. So, sasabihin ng iba, ano na lang yung kakainin ko kapag wala ng kanin? Hindi na ako mabubusog. So, it's a matter of the bulk, okay? And the satisfaction that you will feel. So, as per bulk, okay, you can have vegetables. So, right now, actually, nandito na sa harap ko yung breakfast ko. I remove the rice. So, it's just a free breakfast meal. Ito lang yung kasama sa room that I have. So, it's no rice. So, this one is bacon and eggs and the few tomato and cucumber, and the other one, kasi good for 2 yung room ko. So, I have breakfast for 2 that I will eat as 1. And just enough for my OMAD. So, kakain ako ng 1 meal a day mostly. So, I think I will not spend anything. But, we will see. Of course, kapag nagutom tayo, and I feel like I'm already appetite corrected. So, if there will be time later that I will feel like I'm really nutritionally hungry, then I eat. Hindi ako nagpapagutom to the max na sabihin natin pinapahirapan ko yung sarili ko. Okay? Fasting is a mental mindset to which we will talk about in a little while. So, my other one is beef tapa. So, it's the same, just eggs and that. So, walang sides na usual natin, which is the rice or the bread or the pancake or the mashed potato and all that. So, for the bulk, if gusto mo yung mapuno talaga yung tiyan mo, you can have green leafy vegetables, you can have all of these other low-carb vegetables. Tawag natin dyan is non-starchy vegetables because they are not made of starch. They are mostly have a little starch and then mostly fiber na. So, anong example na yon? Lahat ng talbos ng kamote, dahon ng malunggay, dahon ng kung ano-ano pa. Green leafy vegetables, lettuce, cabbage, and pechay. Favorite natin yan. And we also have cauliflower, we also have broccoli, asparagus. Those are actually hindi naman ganun parang native talaga sa Pilipinas. So, hindi kailangan magastos. If you can plant your own kangkong, your own alugbate, your own kung ano-ano pa dyan, when you can plant it on your own, that's the best. Kasi tumutubo lang yan naturally. Hindi kailangang fertilizer, walang kailangang pesticides, and we can accommodate that. As for satiety naman, yung parang feeling talaga na na-satisfy ka sa pagkain mo, we can have proteins, okay? So yung bulk, remember, it's just optional. If you choose to prioritize the bulk in food, so you will get vegetables, for example, remember na optional lang yan. It's your choice. Like as for me, I don't need bulk. Hindi ko na kailangan punuin talaga yung tiyan ko. I'm already used to being full na hindi ganun kadami as compared before. Of course, you will consider this as marami, no? Because hindi nga kayo sanay. Pero ako kasi before, grabe talaga ako kumain. Like we are really foodie when it comes to eating. At sanay kami na kumakain kasi we are a big family. So 5 of us children and then our parents. So minimum 7 kaming kumakain. So alam yung sobrang sayang kumain kapag kasama yung family. So ano yan, and there's 3 boys in the family, among us siblings. So malalakas talaga kumain. So me and my sister, the way we eat, kahit pa medyo hindi ganon ka expected when people see us, but they are really surprised that we really eat like the boys in our family. So ganon talaga yung appetite namin. And right now, may bubuyog, kinagat ako. So, and right now, somewhat, I think we've become appetite corrected na hindi na ganon kadami. So even if 2 plate ito, but it's just small. For me, this is just small. Especially if I'm just doing OMAD, no? Kakaunti lang ito. And don't worry about the affordability and economy. Hindi kailangan mahal. This one is just included na sa ating accommodation here. But in our home, like eggs alone and just vegetables, and then kung gusto nyo merong meat or kahit danggit o kung anong dried fish o sardinas na fresh sardines, ha, yung kayo talaga nagluto to maximize the benefit of omega-3 and everything there. Avoid canned and processed foods. So 1 kilo no, nakabili ako last time, is just 30 pesos. So 30 pesos 1 kilo na, dun ka bumili sa talipapa. And how many people can share that? That's already good enough for the whole family for 1 or 2 meals. And ilang gagastusin. We just need to be creative. Okay, so first step in low carb is to avoid the starchy and high carb foods, no? So kailangan alamin nyo yan. We will post the link on our safe list. So generally, kunin nyo lang yung rice, kunin nyo yung carbohydrates and the bread, the pasta, the noodles. That's already low carb. Okay na yan. Yung pagkain Pinoy. So these are common breakfast meal. Yung kaisa tapsilog, long silog, chorizo-log, o kung ano-ano pa dyan. Kunin nyo lang yung rice, okay? And of course, try to eat the viand o yung meat na pure proteins and fats. So the meat is the best, but for those naman na vegetarian, hindi naman po yan hindi namin yan ina-avoid, no? We are not discriminating that. We promote variety and also we are pro-choice. So I myself have loved ones who are really vegetarian and I support them and I can eat with them. And there are vegetarian options. So merong mga certain foods to which we can discuss maybe on another time. But generally, you can eat many things. You just have to widen your thinking. Kailangan maging open-minded, kailangan maging creative, at pinakakailangan sa lahat, alamin muna yung foundation on what is really low carb. The moment you do that, isang tingin mo pa lang sa dining table, kung anong nakahain dyan, you will know instantly what foods you can eat, which ones you are better not eating. And that is the reason why hindi kami nagbibigay ng specific meal plans. Of course, we do that for certain special considerations, but generally, hindi kami nag-specify ng isang meal plan lang o isang potahe lang. Because iba-iba tayo ng preference, iba-iba tayo ng mga brands na gusto, iba-iba tayo ng isda na gusto, iba-iba tayo ng pagluto ng itlog. Kahit sa itlog nga lang, we have so many different preferences. So, we want this way of life to be tailored fit, yung specific talaga para sa inyo. And the moment you know these foundations is sobrang dali na lang po. I invite you to join our Facebook group. It's now 265,000 in members. So congratulations to all of you for finding that group. And of course, no, I couldn't do it without the help of the moderators and admins of the group, who are all, by the way, are just volunteers, advocates, enthusiasts. Wala pong binabayaran sa amin dito. We are just doing it plainly for advocacy. And each of us, meron po kaming sari-sariling trabaho. We have work, we have responsibilities, but whenever we have break in our time, we really try to insert it para po ma-approve namin yung post ninyo, yung queries ninyo, and your other concerns, and address it to the best of our knowledge. Kung meron man mga changes, like say for example, the one I posted last year is parang acceptable si ganito, but now we are no longer considering this as not acceptable, kindly consider that kasi we are evolving. And also, before, we are just doing life without rice as to make it easy for the rest. But now that we are getting bigger, our responsibility is also becoming more serious, especially now that I do my own private practice. Yung mga patients ko kasi, pinapapasok ko talaga sa group to get inspiration from food. And I don't want them getting the idea na okay lang uminom ng soft drinks basta yung 0 calorie, yung zero sugar. No, that is not part of our best practice. What we promote in Life Without Rice is ideally the best practice. After that, practicality, yung pinakasimple, and sustainability, okay? But our core is really the best practice when it comes to promoting health and healing. So, over practicality, over, the practical side is just, the practical side and the sustainability side actually just comes second. Second lang siya. Because for our other members who badly need to heal due to serious conditions, they really need to improve and really need to do many drastic changes sa kanilang way of eating, and it is because they are battling life and death situations. Kaya yung sa panahon na yan, the healing is the priority, and then comes of course sustainability, how we can sustain that healing. And then kapag mahirap talaga, that is where we do the adjustment. That's why we also have from time to time practical applications. Just like now, I'm not in my home, so I'm only limited to the ones na available dito. So that's why nakakain ako kung ano man, and I cannot demand na coconut oil ba yung ginagamit nyong oil dito or whatever. And of course, hindi ko lang nasabi, for example, I can just opt for a better options. Like wala ng coconut oil, I can just have a hard-boiled egg para at least wala talagang oil, no? But I believe that this place is somewhat good enough to really get quality products. Anyway, moving forward, that's about the low carb nutrition. Low carb generally, kung pwede lang hindi tayo lumagpas sa ating 50 gram of net carbohydrate na allowance. So net carbohydrates is the total carbohydrates na easily converted into energy or glucose or fructose sa katawan natin. And you can compute that by Googling it. So for example, itlog, one egg will have roughly about 1 gram of net carbohydrates. And then there's also the other vegetables, like say for example, rice. Rice will have 1 cup will have 40 to 44 grams of net carb. So if we only have 50 grams, kung 50 lang yung allowance natin sa isang araw para ma-ensure na yung road natin to healing will be good, how can you accommodate something else? Because 1 cup of rice is not going to make you feel satisfied. 1 cup of rice will never be enough. But did you know na kung tatanggalin mo lang yung rice, your sense of satiety, your sense of fullness will be longer. Mas stretch po yung inyong sensation for fullness, yung pagka feeling satisfied niyo, to a much larger time. That's why we can accommodate OMAD, 1 meal a day. We understand na imposible para sa iba the moment they hear na 1 meal a day lang kumakain. It's because you never tried it, or if you've tried it, you tried it while eating high carb. Kapag parati kayong kumakain ng carbohydrates, you can never sustain OMAD kasi gugutumin talaga kayo niyan. This is because when you do eat carbohydrates on a regular basis, you will be dependent on glucose as your only source of energy. So when you are glucose dependent, sobrang dali yan nawawala sa katawan. Nawawala yan sa bloodstream. So that's why kailangan nyo namang i-replenish. Para siyang tabo. Para siyang tabo lang na every time you consume glucose, it's just one tabo and then madaling nakuha. But if you will actually start fueling on ketones coming from fats, and yung pag-fuel po sa ating katawan ng ating energy, no, hindi lang basta sa asukal, pwedeng manggaling sa taba natin, but yung energy na galing sa ating taba, like sa ating braso, sa ating bewang, sa ating tiyan, hindi yan na-activate. Hindi yan na-activate unless maubos muna yung parang drum mo ng tubig. Okay? But the moment na ma-activate, the moment na maubos na yan, that is through, say for example, fasting or di kaya pagkain ng walang carbohydrates for a couple of days or weeks. That's the only time na aandar yung direct source. So, say for example, from a tank, no, or from the river, na yung fuel source mo is diretso na. But hindi yan matatap unless maubos muna yung nasa tabo mo and then yung nasa drum mo na yung reserve mo. So example niyan, yung nasa tabo is the one in your bloodstream, and yung tubig na nasa drum is the one in your liver. So our liver has glycogen. Naalala niyo ba yung starch na sinabi natin kanina? Starch is the complex form or storage form of carbohydrates na nanggagaling sa plant sources. But when it comes to our body, meron din siyang kanyang sariling storage form ng carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates. And that is in the form of glycogen. So, kailangan muna maubos yan so that our body will start on breaking down fats as a source of energy. That's why maraming mga taong matataba na hindi, kahit na parang ginugutom nila yung sarili nila, pero hindi pa rin sila pumapayat because they actually don't go over the stream, no? Hindi sila pumupunta dun sa river as the source of energy. Hanggang drum lang sila. So what they do is kinukuha nila yung ginugutom nila sarili nila until yung kanilang drum of water or their drum of glucose nasa halfway, nasa 1/4, and then kakainin naman sila ng konti. So parati sila nagugutom and they're always craving kasi nga yung kanilang energy tank, yung kanilang energy drum is not full. Parating konti na lang. But they don't know na kung inubos lang sana nila yan, pinagpatuloy nila, like say for example through fasting or not eating carbohydrates anymore, that storage will now be on hold, hindi na yan gagamitin, and your body will shift into fat metabolism or fatty acid oxidation. Kapag nangyari na yung fatty acid oxidation, dyan na po yung magic mangyayari. Your body will now start on fueling from the fats in your system. So, yun ang mga techniques how to do activation of your fats as a source of energy. Now, sasabihin naman ng iba, how about ako? Ang payat-payat ko na, hindi ko na kailangan magpapayat pa. Yes, you don't need to lose fats or lose anything anymore. But did you know na kung patuloy kayong kumakain ng high carb but kakaunti lang on calorie deficit kasi ayaw yung tumaba, you are also risking yourself of losing your muscle mass. That's why nangangayayat. So, a better option is for you to eat more, but eat the right kind of foods. And what are the right kind of foods? It's mostly proteins, good proteins, easily digestible proteins, and fats. And ano yung pinaka-basic na yun? The basic would be the animal food. So that's why it's mostly carnivore, just like eggs and pork and beef. Okay? So kanina nag-iisip ako kung magdadanggit ba ako o magbe-bacon. Meron talagang point na nag-consider ako ng danggit. Pero baka sunod na araw na. Right now, let's go for bacon, okay? And it's something in our caution list, okay? So, yung food list natin divided into safe, caution, and danger list. Yung mga walang right kumain muna ng nasa caution list ay yung mga taong nag-heal pa lang. And right now, we can say that we are at least metabolically healthy. At least for me, personally, I've never been healthier as compared to before, okay? Hindi na ako nangangailangan ng antihistamine, hindi ako nangangailangan ng gamot. I always feel at the top of my health. My focus is good, my mental clarity is good. Yung kailangan ko lang motivation, and of course, no, kailangan kong tutukan yung ibang bagay. But generally, how I work right now is quite efficient as compared to my previous self in the past. So that's why I can accommodate from time to time these foods, pero hindi po ito on a day-to-day basis, not on a regular basis. Definitely not the majority of time of the year. Kasi nga, us in the low carb and fasting community, we fast more than we eat. Mas matagal po yung fasting period namin kaysa sa ating eating period. Okay? So, how to start your intermittent fasting? We divide the day into eating window and fasting window. So, anong ibig sabihin yan? Kung 24 hours po yung isang araw, i-divide mo yan sa anong oras ka lang kakain. So, that's your eating window. And the other time would be your fasting window. Generally, sa beginners, circadian fasting is already okay. Anong ibig na sabihin ng circadian fasting? So, circadian fasting is eating your last meal, yung last na kain nyo, 4 to 6 hours before your intended bedtime. Okay? So, sa mga night shift, iba-iba yung trabaho, kayo na lang bahala mag-adjust. But generally, kung kailan kayo matutulog, deduct 4 to 6 hours of that at dapat yun yung last meal intake ninyo. I'd rather go for 6 hours personally. But if beginners pa lang, you can start with just 4 hours. So, example, kung gusto nyo matulog ng 10 o'clock ng gabi, dapat yung last nyong kain, yung huling subo nyo would be around 6 o'clock ng hapon o ng gabi. So, that is circadian fasting and maganda po yan sa pag-correct ng ating circadian rhythm, pag-correct ng ating hormonal imbalances, pag-correct ng ating appetite, and our metabolic derangement, yung nasira na sa ating pangangatawan related to diabetes, inflammation, insulin resistance, all of that. Lahat na yan related to our hormonal control. And one way to improve that is through circadian fasting. And how about yung breakfast? So yung breakfast, kung sanay kayong kumain ng early in the morning, so you can do that. But maybe next time, you can try to, yung atin lang naman minsan yung routine na merong laman yung tiyan natin. So you can just take like coffee, tea, o salabat without any sugar, without any calories. You can accommodate that. So, right now, for example, eto, hindi pa ako nakakain, so I just have coffee. Pero alam nyo, hindi ito totoo na nagkakape ako ng pure ng ganito, no? So, I just have this. Oh, nakalahati na lang. So, this is the coffee I put in my glass na merong tubig and merong ice na natunaw na because it's quite hot here. And that's what I do. And then I reserve my food later on kapag gutom na talaga. Yesterday, supposedly natapos kaming kumain around 2 o'clock. But when we arrived here, when my brother and my mom sent me here, kasi they accompanied me to make sure that this place is okay. And then we ate. Kakaunti lang naman, mga around 5 o'clock. So, right now, it's already 10 o'clock and that's already 17 hours of fasting. On my usual days, I told you, I usually do 18-6, diba? But I think since yung pagkain ko dito is hanggang 10 o'clock lang because it's a free breakfast meal. So, during these times, I will move my eating window earlier. So, I can eat around 10? Tama ba? 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock until 5 o'clock. Or maybe 10 o'clock, alas 10 ng umaga, hanggang 4 o'clock ng hapon. So, that is 18-6 for me. Eating as early as 10 a.m. and then as late as 4 p.m. Or if adjustable naman yan, I can just move my meal around 11 and then I can eat around 5 kasi I always love sunset. And I think we will have a good sunset here later this afternoon. So I think I'm gonna have something to eat or drink to enjoy the sunset. Anyhow, so yun yung basic ng ating circadian fasting. You don't need to really force yourself into 18 hours, 20 hours sa beginners pa lang. It will come naturally. Kailangan lang ang unahin natin, we can just go with do like low carb first during the first 2 weeks, and then after the first 2 weeks, you are now prepared to do circadian fasting. But of course, if meron kayong mental strength, no, you are tough, okay, from the inside, okay. If you can do that today, tomorrow, or as soon as you can, all the best. You can expect better recovery, okay? So, circadian fasting, and then after a week or 2, you will notice na, for example, sanay kayong kumakain ng alas 7 ng umaga in the morning, you can now see that you are not that hungry anymore. kapag naging fully fat adapted na kayo. Ibig sabihin, your body is now starting to really use ketones and fats as energy. So, hindi lang ito manggagaling sa inyong pagkain o sa taba na kinakain ninyo or what, but it can also come from your body. And for those naman na payat na wala nang muscles, wala nang fats to burn, you can just eat as much as you want, okay? And let your body use up. Kahit akala nyo sobrang butot balat na kayo, you still have fats. Kakaunti lang na talaga yung walang fats. Those are just anorexic. Below 18 na yung BMI. So, those need special attention. For those na merong eating disorders, I suggest you seek consult. We have our low carb counselor. Kung gusto nyo, I can refer you to them para sa guidance, psychological guidance when it comes to dealing with eating disorder. Eating disorder is not a problem with food intake lang alone, okay? It's not just about nutrition, but it's more on the mental side, okay? So if you are having trouble starting low carb nutrition because of psychological problems, you let us know and we can refer you to the low carb counselors and psychologists that we know who can possibly guide you. And that is what we consider generally as safe for everyone doing low carb. Sa mga special populations, children, okay, pregnant women, and then breastfeeding women, you don't need to force yourself to fast. Hindi kailangan persahin mag-fast. But also, the caveat of that is you don't also need to make it as an excuse to keep on eating or do overeating. Hindi po yan. Walang sino man ang may right na mag-overeat talaga more than what they need. That is just a pure recipe for disaster, for problems, for metabolic problems. So, I will eat in a short while. Yun lang. I hope that is clear enough when we say low carb and fasting. So, kapag naglo-low carb, iniiwasan natin yung mga carbohydrates and yung mga starch, okay? And also the fruits, the fructose, because fructose is a special kind of carbohydrate wherein hindi siya diretsong nakakapagtaas ng blood sugar. And I think that's the downfall of the many patients na may diabetes. Personally speaking, for those na alam na or for those na hindi pa alam, my father died of diabetes complications only 4 years ago. He was just 56 years old, so very young, and he didn't die of high blood sugar. But he died because of liver cancer. And for the last 5 years ng buhay niya, yung kinakain lang niya parate, he was avoiding all the things that spikes his blood sugar. At alam niyo ba kung ano lang yung kinakain niya? Mostly fruits. So, ilang kilo siguro ng guyabano in a day. Okay? Because he thought that guyabano is the healthiest form. And I think isa yun sa mga not the best practice na ginagawa ng mga diabetics, because they see the moment they prick their blood glucose for blood glucose, nakikita nila hindi nagsaspike yung kanilang blood sugar when they eat fruits. But what they don't know, it's causing problems in their liver. It's leading to insulin resistance. That's why triglycerides is very high, uric acid is very high, and eventually liver failure. From fatty liver, it becomes non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, and then eventually it becomes liver cirrhosis. And as what happened to my dad, it developed into liver cancer. Okay, so marami namang factors na maraming other conditions, but important lang dito is for us to recognize to avoid the carbohydrates that spikes blood sugar, carbohydrates that spikes insulin, and the carbohydrates that induces inflammation. So that's generally the glucose, fructose, and the starch, because starch is just glucose in complex form. And when it comes to fasting naman, start with circadian fasting, because by research, mas grabe yung incidence of sudden death, sudden cardiac attack, yung mga bangungot na mamatay lang sa pagtulog, for those people who are eating late. Kung gusto nyong kumain ng early breakfast, you can do that if you want, okay? Personally, I don't do that. But if you wish to do that, you can do that. But just know, between eating early and eating late, you are better off prioritizing making sure that you don't eat late. Okay? Kahit kumain pa kayo ng early in the morning, if that's you feel na you need to do to start your day, you can do that. But as to health-wise, it's better talaga to eat on an empty stomach. Okay? Huwag kayong matakot. The gutom part will just last 3 days. Kasi sanay na sanay. Sinanay nyo kasi yung katawan nyo to keep on eating late at night. But give it 3 days, your body will just adapt. You will adjust, okay? And one way to really consider adjusting is through the help of mental mindset. So that's why you can have the groups. We have Life Without Rice, and also we have Low Carb Feasting and Fasting Community. Life Without Rice, mostly nagpo-post lang dyan, food photos lang talaga. Pagkain lang yung importante dyan to inspire people to what food to eat, no? So that's why sometimes we also decline foods that are not really pleasant in the eyes because it's for inspiration. We want to inspire as many people as possible. So that's why we also have our admin. We have Admin Chloe, who is a photography enthusiast, and she gives tips on how to improve the lighting para mas maganda naman. And it's also rewarding. Kaming lahat, even us on the rest of the admins and mods, we try to improve then, okay? So, wag kayong ma-pressure, pero do it to improve yourself, to inspire, because our goal is to inspire people to do beautiful, healthy, nutritious meals, and most importantly, yung low carb compliant. And for those questions naman na merong mga gustong queries and merong mga concerns when it comes to low carb nutrition and fasting, that's also the purpose of the LCFF community, Low Carb Feasting and Fasting Community. Sa mga members dyan, 2 years ago, the initial name of that group is the Perfect at Last Support Group because I initially made that group para support group sa mga nagpa-fasting for those who read my book. So I wrote books. It's 3 book series. So Perfect at Last, Weight, that's about fasting. Health, Eat to Heal, that's about the food that we need to eat in order to heal. And lastly, about wellness, the internal calm amidst external chaos, something that is really close to my heart because as much as possible, I want everybody to really feel well, not just physically, not just medically, but also in our mental health. That's why when it comes to low carb nutrition and fasting, we always address it first with the right mindset. And that is the group is all about. And for those naman with medical conditions, merong iniinom na gamot, or who wants to do it the best practice guided way, we also have a program for that. So currently, I'm no longer accepting consultations, but I do guidance through our masterclass group. So we have exclusive groups for those who wish to be guided. You can just message our admins. We have Doc Joseph and Grace Chua Rojo. So that's an alternative account that the admins handle. We have admin Tin there, and we also have our other admins, Alvin, Andrew, Mabi, May Mabel, and Angela. You can send them a message if you wish to be a part of the exclusive group wherein I do live Q&A every Saturday as much as I can. Kapag merong ongoing class, given talaga yan. For those na walang ongoing class, like this coming 3 weeks, I think I'll have live Q&A this Saturday because it's a special day and I will do that live with you all. But the next 2 weeks, I think I will not be able to do so because I'm attending an important exam. So, online yung exam natin, so hindi pwedeng mag-live ako din. Baka hindi ko masubmit yung exam ko. Okay? So, that's about it. It's already 42 minutes. Sobrang daldal talaga. But anyway, that's just the basic of low carb nutrition kasi I made a low carb and fasting for beginners, but it's in English, and I feel na we really need to make this way of life as easily understandable, yung madaling intindihin to as many people as possible. So, I would like to apologize kung hindi ako nakakapag-Tagalog ng maganda o nakakapag-explain in full Tagalog dialect because I'm not a Tagalog speaker, a native Tagalog speaker. I'm Ilonggo by birth. I'm Cebuano by heart. Hiligaynon all the time now, trying to be Tagalog, but generally, it's not my native tongue, and bulakbol po kasi ako nung high school at nung elementary, so wala akong masyadong background, strong foundation with Filipino language. But it doesn't mean I don't like Philippines. I love Philippines so much. I love our country so much. I consider myself as a proud Filipino, okay? And I don't want to be anything else, okay? And yes, that's the reason for this. Me and my team are now looking into reaching out to as many as possible within our reach, within our locality, and spreading this advocacy so that it will become the norm kapag pinabayaan lang natin ito, it will still become a norm, but maybe in 20, 30 years. But with the things that we are gearing towards moving, we are looking into making this mainstream as early as possible. And I hope we are going to be successful, and with your help, of course, we can all be successful. The moment you share, you like the video, you watch the video, you are already helping. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, and in behalf of the whole team and in behalf of the whole community, I thank you all. We thank you all in becoming a part of our advocacy into improving everyone. Hindi po tayo nagdadamot because we believe there is enough for everybody. We can all thrive together, no? Hindi lang basta survive, hindi lang basta mabuhay, but really succeed. We thrive when we consider everyone, we include everyone. So inclusive po tayo. Wala tayong dinidiscriminate, and we are prioritizing those who want to improve themselves with our help. We are prioritizing those who are open-minded. We are prioritizing those who are here to really learn. Hindi lang basta nag-discriminate lang, hindi lang basta naghahanap lang ng kung anong mema lang, o yung may mga gusto lang mag-discriminate. We are here to really help those who are seeking help. And for those naman who are perfectly happy with where they are, na hindi low carb at hindi nagpa-fasting, so we are also very happy for you. Yung sabi lang natin, sana all, but it's just that there's so many of us who are no longer satisfied with the standard dietary recommendations, with the standard management when it comes to our illness, that we are looking for something better, something more natural, something that is more sustainable, and hopefully the best kind. So, yun lang muna for now. Maraming salamat po. This is your Diet Doctor, Dr. Josephine Grace Rojo for short. Thank you so much, and I'll see you again in our next video. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel if you wish to know more, and follow our pages or join our groups. Maraming salamat po. Thank you.